Hi, and welcome to PGurus. My name is Kushal, and I'm your host for today. And today we have with us Richa Gautam, who is the founder of Cares Global, and she's also a civil rights activist. Richa, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Namaste. I'm doing very well. Thank you. Thank you for
Namaste.
having me.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure. And I wanted to kind of get into the recent developments in California, and we wanted to hear from you and what your perspective is, and if you can kind of inform our audience about that, about exactly what is going on. What is the SB 403 and why is it relevant to every Indian in the country and the world, even though it's just local in California? What is it?
Definitely. So, SB 403 is actually a amendment. It is an amendment to the current Andhra Civil Rights Act of 1964, and it'll affect FEHA, which is the Fair Employment and Housing Act in California. So it seeks to amend this law about discrimination. So it's going to add caste as a category to include caste as a category. And this is controversial right now. It sparked a lot of controversy because, as even the law, if you read it, it first of all started out on February 9th, I believe, and it started out calling it discrimination based on ancestry. So there's been a lot of smoke and mirrors game being played out here. And at a spot change, on the very day when it was going to be presented to the Rules Committee, they changed it to caste. And of course, that is when, because we were following it, we basically raised our antennas. All of our organizations and people who are interested in this issue decided to, reach out to the senators and find out what's going on. And when we look at that law, initially they started out detailing a lot of the details that we've seen time and again prop up in the resolutions and the, ordinance in Seattle as well as here. They had those definitions on, caste as a social hierarchy, and they also had some of the definitions on Dalit and included terms like Dalit and Adivasi. Slowly, there's been amendments going on, and they've removed the terms Dalit and Adivasi out of it. They've removed some of those definitions, tried to broaden it in terms of the geographies that it covers in terms of national origin, and all of those kind of trying to make it look less targeting of South Asians. As we all know, right, the reason we are really against this idea or opposing the idea of SB 403 is because it singles out a certain community for ethno-religious profiling. Even though they keep saying it's not about Hindu, it's become a little bit more sophisticated in California. They've removed the word Hindu, they've removed the social hierarchical, all of those details. They've kept details like endogamy and, social exclusion, which all seem like, endogamy is not something you can prosecute someone on, right? It's a choice who you marry. So again, there's lots of little details into this law because of which it is being opposed by Indian Americans, especially Hindu Americans, because caste is a term, like it or not, it has been a colonial term that has been associated with Hindus. It was started in the Spanish Iberian context when they were colonizing the world. The British adopted it, and yet they have removed it from their lexicon and completely transposed it into the Indian and Hindu context.
I know it's crazy because we have the Varna Jati system, right? We don't have caste, and that was a very different system where there was meritocracy, and it was more fluidic, right? And so people did have a choice, and if they showed caliber, if they showed interest, and if they had the the acumen to do something, then they were considered for that for sure. And so that turned into that was actually misclassified as caste system because that was a very strict, stringent birth-based system, right? And so that meritocracy went away, and it was more categorized in the wrong way, right? So we took out all the jatis and everything like that. When we talk about caste, and there's so many, right? There's not just four. So yeah, it's very complex. And so yeah, I think this definitely affects everybody, right? The immigrants, everybody moving into California. California is still, the tech hub, right? And so, this is something everybody should be considered about. And this is just one out of many along the line, right? That will probably keep coming up. And as we have seen in the past, in cities such as Seattle and even in Toronto, we saw similar things with the school board. And so I wanted to also bring a little bit of attention on the Cisco case that was recently dismissed by the court in California. What exactly happened? What was that a case about? And what does that mean for the future of these discriminatory caste bills? Why is that victory such an important milestone?
I think it is a very important milestone. I also want to say that caste as a term is not defined, so all the points that you mentioned are so important, as well as the point that, caste is, because it's not defined and there's a vagueness attached to this bill, SB 403, there are various reasons why it becomes unconstitutional, because it targets a community and also it becomes voided for vagueness. So, that point made, I want to go into what you just asked me about the Cisco case. I think Cisco case has been a pillar along with Equality Labs survey to talk about caste and why it's necessary to bring in caste policy in the United States. Now, if you look at the Cisco case currently, it got dismissed for the two defendants, Iyer and Compella. So that is definitely a big win. Even though CRD keeps saying it's voluntarily dismissed, it was dismissed because of the motions for sanctions that the two defendants, Iyer Compella, filed. And the motions for sanctions actually details a lot of important facts, fabrication of evidence, and it details some prosecutorial abuse. So they have particularly used and alleged these terms in the motions for sanctions. And if all of the points are listed out, if we talk about them, the fact that Iyer actually hired John Doe, the guy who claims to be discriminated, he gave him a really high package and equity of worth millions of dollars. So this is not some poor Dalit we're talking about. He's a rich guy who got hired by Iyer and earned millions of dollars, and he basically was bypassed for a position by another Dalit. Basically, Iyer championed and mentored another Dalit as well. So Iyer was definitely not looking at their castes. Same for Ramana Compella. Ramana Compella claims that he didn't even know what John Doe's caste was. So what are the implications, you ask me? And I think that there are hopefully we are able to make enough noise about this, make our senators know about this, fabrication of evidence and the way this case has been filed, just to make it an Exhibit A for caste policy. So we really have to make our voices heard. So I hope everyone who listens to this show makes their voice heard, talks to the senators, lets them know about 𝙒𝙤𝙤𝙤𝙤, which a bunch of us volunteers put together, studying court documents to understand what's going on with this case. I personally have studied the Equality Labs report, written about it extensively as to how the survey was absolutely unscientific. And further, I went on to research this because this was being used and splashed all over media. Now, the point here I wanted to make was that, at this time, CRD has not said anything that, obviously they're keeping their mouths shut about all of the issues. Media has totally ignored this aspect, right? Media has its own role to play, and which is where we have to start looking at things like, there's a center for, a policy think tank in California. I forget the exact name of it. I think it's called CPC, Center for Policy in California, which actually wrote about corruption in CRD, right? It has written about how litigious CRD has become at this stage. It is working against the economy of California. It is working against the corporates and Silicon Valley. And around 350 companies have left California in the past 5 years. This is important to note because a lot of the environment that is created, by CRD, they don't allow arbitration, which is also what happened in our Cisco case. Also, if you see, Oracle, Riot Games, Activision, you name it, there's been a bunch of cases, Tesla, they've all had this issue come up. And the Center for Policy in California actually lists out these cases and says that, CRD has become a bounty hunter at this time. And there's some change required in how, it functions. There has to be some, adjudication around it. So I think those are important points to note from not just as a Hindu American or Indian American. I see it as a bigger issue for America. Are our 5 pillars of democracy working well? I think that is a very important question that not just Indian Americans, but the broader Americans need to ask. What's going on where state is becoming bigger, state is looking for profit, whereas, the companies, the corporates who were earlier a part of our, spirit of America, the entrepreneurship spirit of America, they are being haunted so much that they have to leave California. So I just wanted to put that new point out.
Thank you for that. Yeah, it's important for our community to understand the intricacies of these things, especially, given so much detail, right? And
look for partners, beyond the Indian we are largely, we become a micro minority. I'm sorry, to butt in like that, but we need to build alliances across and make education a big part of this process.
Absolutely. Yeah. Raising awareness is very important because, more people can get involved, right? And so we have seen more Indian Americans actually get more involved. They're finding out what they can do about it. And, if we all as a community wake up and, become more active, that would definitely help, right? Because that means calling senators, it means getting more people informed, and more aware of the situation, and how unconstitutional some of this stuff is, right? And it's been asked to not appear to be that way, although it is. It is a very unconstitutional thing going on, and it actually violates those fundamental principles on which this country is, founded on, and the civil rights that we all have. Right. So that's something that we really need to understand ourselves and then be able to better educate others. And I also wanted to ask you, on that note, what is, some of the work that you have been doing recently, in terms of CARES Global, and what is that?
So CARES Global actually is an organization that I've been working in the field of minority rights, specifically looking at raising awareness about the Pakistan and Bangladesh minority persecution that happens against the Hindus, the Sikhs and Christians, and any minority community that lives there. It suffers, an ethnic cleansing and also forced conversions, abduction of girls. I think it's a huge issue, and there's tons of work that we're doing in that area. But I know today it's about caste, so that's another thing, civil rights. So human rights, civil rights, minority rights. I mean, we really focus on, and we have people working on these issues all the time. And I do think caste is a big concern for us because it is taking away our civil rights at this time. The idea that caste policy can come in, generate a lot of Hinduphobia and generate a lot of concern around Asian hate, which is happening every single day. As you must have seen, even on the day when we had the Hinduphobia resolution or proclamation being passed in Fremont, we had so many people out there in the trying to bully us down, to put their make it their event, So that's the kind of hatred we are facing at this time, and we really have to counter it, make it known to our senators, to our congressmen, that this is what we are facing. It's not about caste discrimination at this time. It is only it's actually just a targeting of Hindus that's happening right now, and Indian Americans. So I do think that that's a big issue that we are raising right now. And one of the things that I'm doing, besides working as an analyst on Cascade with a few cascade.org, is also working on a website called Caste Files, which will allow us to put the alternate viewpoint around our caste issue. What's happening right now, as you know, the Cisco case has been sidelined. The win around the Cisco case has been sidelined. It has been splashed in the media for all the wrong reasons, and a lot of fabrications, using allegations as fact in the past 3-4 years. And so we really felt the need to create an alternative platform that will educate us as Indians, as also as our children who are being drawn into this social justice facade that is being created by groups like Equality Labs. So we want to create an alternative to that and have our children learn about what happened with the caste issue during the colonial times and how we are very different from what is being portrayed in the textbooks around Hinduism. So I think those are very important things that we're looking at.
Richa. I mean, this is incredible because we do need, the truth. We need to understand what the truth is, and nowhere can we learn this. There's no place we can go to where all this information is available in one area, and if there are, it's not very widely known to people, right? So this is a very, very important thing, in my opinion, and I believe all of us should check out the work that Richa is doing and support her. This is very important. We have the other side telling their narrative, which is a completely false and fabricated narrative, right? And so we want our community to understand the truth and have talking points based on those facts and what the truth really is. So thank you so much, Richa, for doing the work that you're doing and for coming on the show today and sharing with us and inspiring all of us today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.